oh, by the way, you're going to spend most of your awake adult hours of the majority of your life working. It better be satisfying, or it's going to be, as you said, it's going to be hell. So when we talked about this, I said, and this is interesting, Scott, because Scott, like I, derives a great deal of meaning out of their job, okay? And I said, well, when they asked Freud what people needed to be happy, he said 2 words, right? And he said, no. He said, love and work. And existentially, I think there's some real truth there. My experience has been, you go talk to any American age 20 to 70 who's working, and I'll give you 10 minutes tops before they'll tell you what they do. And if you run into like a physician, it'll probably be in the first 5 sentences.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is who I am. Scott and I are very hardworking people, and I've had several of the people I've admired most of my life are extraordinarily hardworking people. People want to call them workaholics. I don't necessarily know how true that is, as much as I talk about craftsmanship.
Yeah.
And what's a craftsman do? And way back to the guilds and all that stuff. And the idea is that a craftsman is always about perfecting his or her trade. Always. And so, they may be out with their family doing something, they see something, oh boy, that helped. Let's try that. Let's just see, And they can be their own worst critics when it comes to their work. They may have things where they're not the happiest with their work and other people are raving about it, that kind of stuff. And it's because, they're about doing it as well as they can repeatedly, and always trying to find some way to do it faster, better, cheaper, whatever. That's where they are. And it's not because this is the way to make people notice me or, get fame, fortune, whatever. It's because this is representation of who I am. And I want it to be seen as very good. 2 parts of it. 1, opportunity presented itself. And 2, I did the work of it. I took hold of it. Sometimes I failed, but a lot of times I didn't. And sometimes when I didn't fail, it's because somebody else helped me. Faith moves mountains, but bring a shovel. Be prepared to do this, including deal with the discomfort and the pain and by the way, some of the joy. Some people can't handle the joy of some things, the success of it all. The second part is that, so again, I take my own life. Grew up in a blue-collar family. My father at one point was a union vice president. Both children of my mom and dad, children of the Depression. We grew up lower middle class, had enough food, that kind of stuff, had a house, that kind of thing. Didn't have a lot of money for vacations, things like that, didn't matter. We were eating well and that kind of stuff. And because my father spent 40 years in Michigan Bell, we had benefits, that kind of stuff. They had enough to that they made sacrifices. So all of us got a Catholic education, which they considered to be not only appropriate religiously, but we get a better academic education, which I tend to agree with them. So they made all these sacrifices and bootstrapped themselves up. So here I am. I go to this Catholic high school, pretty good student, pretty decent athlete, looking around for college. My parents never said to me, do you think you go to college? It was always, where are you going to college? Okay, which implied they knew they might have to help financially or not. So one of the things they did to me in high school, they said, you have to have all B's, you want to play sports, you don't get all B's, you stop playing sports. Well, I love sports. I went to high school because I could play sports. So they got the motivator. I was a good student. Get around to going to college. And then in Michigan at that time, they had something called the Michigan, it was an academic scholarship. Basically, it was pass fail. You pass, you got $800 a semester. No, a year. I spent a year. That should be out of a year. If you just pass. Well, I did. And then I think there were some qualifiers on family income, but I'm not sure. Because of that, I got to go to a school that, again, was tantamount to DePaul, because I had it was only $3,300 room board tuition when I went to Kalamazoo College in 1968. And between that, some student loans and some work study, I was able to go to a really nice school, which really taught me to be a student, which really taught me how to think, which got me to the place that so opportunity presented itself and I was able to take a hold of it. Okay. That led to being able to go to University of Alabama and get a doctorate. My entire doctorate cost me $1,200. Okay. Why? Again, opportunity, all in the form of tax dollars. All right. So tell me if I'm a self-made man. No way. Had my uncle help me steer me in a direction. Had my parents help get me to a place. Had teachers that helped me. Self-made man. Now, did I do some things along the way? Sure, worked like hell. Some of the career success I had worked like, but the opportunity was there, and some of the opportunity was random. It wasn't merit-based. It wasn't, that's interdependence. That's interdependence. It's as simple as that. And there's no other way to describe it, in my opinion. And when I hear people talk, they don't acknowledge that. I'm just going like, you don't get how life works, And thus, when you start talking about some of the stuff you're talking about, how do you teach this? Well, I try to point out to people, the good fortune I had with some of the right people. I had this incredible propensity in high school and college, and even now, to find the Scott Rollets of the world, to find bright, hardworking, likable people who were open-minded, who sought to be knowledgeable, things like that. All the way from the time I was a freshman in high school, I just had a good fortune. After a while, I realized, something internal in me was helping make these choices, reaching out to people, working at relationships, that kind of stuff. So where I think I got that, my parents, pure and simple. And then after a while, these friendships helped foster interdependent. It's all about that, and so that's the part. It's an illusion that we buy into, that we're independent. Now, does that mean at times you don't make an independent decision? Of course you do. Of course I do. This meeting today, of course we do. Okay? But does that describe the bigger context of how our lives evolve and move on? No way. So you're talking about this and taking it back to the workplace. That's why we work so much on team building. That's why, when we're doing this service excellence, it's been a nice metaphor to talk about, improve the patient experience, improve the employee experience. Let's have an environment that works. And so, really good teams have that. And really good teams can rely on each other because they're interdependent and they know it. It's almost like I want to keep reminding people that this is a magic show. You really are interdependent. I mean, I know it looks like you're independent right now. You may actually be, you decided what you want for supper. Yes, and that, by the way, that was a clinical. So I told you we almost like naturally get dichotomous. That's almost like how we're wired. So it was Fritz Perls teaching in his methodology of Gestalt therapy that kept saying early on, he's saying, and every time the client's talking about something, they say, and you stop them. Excuse me, every time they say but, you say yes, and. So it's yes, and, yes, and, yes, and. So that they could talk, because a lot of Gestalt was about dealing with the dichotomies internally. I hate my mother, I love my mother, that kind of stuff. I hate my mother and I love my mother. And that's who you are. Okay, so it's that kind of, and believe me, that I over and over again found that to be so therapeutic with people who had addiction, saying, no, it's yes and, it's yes and, because when you embrace this whole aspect of who you are, then you can come to some conclusions about what to do with it and how to address it and how to manage it and how to maybe minimize certain things and maximize other things. But it's who you are,
We recently interviewed Chris Farley's brother, Tom Farley. And are you familiar with yes and being a tool that they use within improv?
No,
So
really?
yes, and is the primary tool that they use within improv because improv is about acceptance. So when somebody throws you something in improv, you don't butt, you take it, you accept it, and you move on with it. Yes, this is what I was given, I accept it. Now here's my spin, here's my direction that I'm gonna take this. So he says that that's
Interesting.
the entire thing with improv. Well, I've always been a fan of yes and responses, but recently with this interview with him, it's kind of brought it back up to the top of my mind. And we have another client that we're blending with them. We're bringing some technical skills to them, but there were already people in place that did the job that we do. So again, we're needing to blend and we're needing to combine. And I'm finding that a yes and response it connects.
Mhm.
So it's not, so if somebody's already there doing a job and I come in like this and I say yes, but now we're separate teams. But if I say yes and, now we're blending. Now
Well,
we're connecting.
And so this is something that it actually gives permission for creativity. That's some of the stuff as far as like with this other group. Hey, how are we alike? That kind of thing. And can I acknowledge you got some strengths in here we don't have? Well, that's great. Because collectively we're going to really be gangbusters. That kind of stuff. And see, that's not how even because at times it's part of the thing that is prosperity thinking says that our economy is not a zero plus game. It says there are infinite resources out there, just find them. One of the reasons why I like the Tao and I like some of the Zen is it's about the unity of stuff. It's just, we got to realize it, we got to recognize it, and we got to look for it because it isn't just going to be self-evident. The FQHCs are not very competitive with each other, but at some levels they are. And it's happened over the last few years. I kept saying, look, if we do this, everybody's going to get better at what they do, and isn't that a game for the state of Indiana? And isn't that the point? So if you end up getting a little bit more money than I do, really does that matter? And what's more, isn't our mission supposed to be we're getting people help to people who need it? And if you succeed, I succeed. Because ultimately, if we're seen as a highly functioning, effective organization, and I say, oh, by the way, that's called an FQHC, and you go up about another 4 miles to HealthNet, and they got one up there too, and that may be more convenient for you, why don't you think about it? Okay, well, that's a win. And so that interdependence, that the we-ness of this, combined with hope, to me, would be two of the biggest things that, like I told you, I wish we were talking more about community. They're called community health centers for a reason. It's about community, and the whole idea about community help is a group of people that help each other.